All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So you've shared some source material with us for this one, and, well, let's just say it's not your typical pile of readings.
It's a bit different.
Yeah, the source is simply titled Excerpts from Null. And what we had is basically that title, the word null itself, and then an image that is, well, it looks completely blank.
That's it. Which, presents a bit of a unique challenge for our usual mission.
Right, our mission being to dive into whatever material you give us and pull out the key insights, the surprising stuff, the things you really need to know.
Exactly. And this time,
how do you actually do a deep dive into, well, nothing, or at least something that seems like nothing? The source name is null. The image is null. So I guess the big question for this deep dive is, what can we possibly learn from a source that seems defined by, well, by absence? Okay, so we've got this source. On the surface, it's just a title, that single word null, and then visually a void. It kind of feels like it's making us confront the whole idea of nullity itself.
yes, exactly. It's not giving us data within the void. It seems like the void is the point.
Right.
And what's actually pretty fascinating, I think, is that this apparently empty source immediately brings up a core idea.
Yeah.
The absence of information is information,
Okay.
By being called null and showing us blankness, the source is actively communicating. It's about nullness or emptiness.
Right. So instead of digging for content in the source, we're sort of exploring the concept the source represents. It's less a container for facts, more like a philosophical nudge using a blank page.
That's a good way to put it.
But, I mean, is that all there is to it? Is the big takeaway just absence matters? Seems a bit thin for a deep dive, maybe.
Well, that's where the dive really begins, isn't it? Yes, absence matters, but how does it matter? And where? Because the concept of null, it's not just some abstract philosophical thing. It's actually fundamental in a lot of fields. Understanding it is often, well, pretty crucial.
Okay, tell me more. Because honestly, my first thought is just like an empty box. Or maybe, waiting for a web page to load and seeing white space. Not exactly blowing my mind.
Sure, but think about other contexts, like mathematics and computer science. 0 is basically a form of null, right? And its invention, that changed everything.
True.
Or in programming, a null pointer or a null value isn't just nothing. It's a specific state. It means the absence of a value or a reference. And if you don't handle that right, big problems, major errors.
Ah, okay. So it's a meaningful void.
Yes. Or look at a database. Understanding null, a field where data is missing, that can tell you loads about how the data was collected or maybe point to some underlying issues.
Right. So the absence itself tells you something about the system, the structure, the process behind it.
Exactly. And think beyond tech for a second. Art and music. Silence in music. Like John Cage's 4'3".
Yeah, famous piece. Or infamous, depending on who you ask.
Right. But it's not just dead air. It makes you listen to the room, the environment, the lack of intended sound, and that becomes the piece. Or negative space in painting or design, it's essential for defining the actual subject.
So the blank canvas isn't just empty, it holds potential. Or, like in this source, maybe the blankness is the statement.
It could be. It's definitely not just the image is blank. It feels like a deliberate blankness. Maybe it is conceptual art. Or, a commentary on information overload these days.
Or even a critique, like it's saying, hey, sometimes the most important thing to say is nothing.
It absolutely invites us to think that way. By hitting us over the head with melody, basically, it pushes us to question what information even is. What do we usually expect from a source? And what happens when that expectation is just denied by absence? Is it saying something about the limits of language? Or representation?
See, now we're getting somewhere. We're deep diving now. It's not just about the source being null. It's about what the source makes us think about nullity everywhere else. It kind of forces you to look at the gaps, the silences, the missing bits, and think about what they mean.
Yeah, and if we pull back to the bigger picture, this whole exploration, prompted by literally one word in a blank space, it's let us touch on how null, or absence, isn't just emptiness. It's a concept with real, profound implications across so many different areas, and maybe even a tool for communication itself.
Okay, so let's recap. From a source that gave us almost nothing tangible,
Right.
we've ended up exploring how absence is information, how null is critical in systems like code and data, how it's used deliberately in art.
And how this specific source might be trying to make us rethink what we even consider valuable information in the first place.
Yeah, it's a source about nullity, delivered through nullity. Pretty clever, actually.
It is, and it sparked a really interesting look at where and how absence actually carries meaning.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on a bit.
Mm-hmm.
If this deep dive into null, into the absence of information, can actually reveal so much, what does that tell you about how you perceive and value information when it is present?
Yeah, what can understanding the power of the void teach you about the substance that usually fills it?